When it comes to recording inside a Zoom call, there's a few options that you have. Up to this point, we've done local recording, which allows you to record local files to a computer, but we're soon ready to turn on recording in the cloud. Recording in the cloud is going to have some additional functionality for your Blackboard course if you're going to be teaching synchronous sessions and want students to have availability to those recordings. So we're going to go over how that works now. First off, though, we're going to start in just a Zoom call, so you would have already set up all the details of your Zoom. And when you're in the call, there is a recording button. We're going to click this recording button in just a second, but I did want to show you something about setting up your recording before we do get into the actual recording of the session. Is if you'll click this up arrow, it can be on the audio side, it could be on the video side, it really doesn't matter. What we need to get to is video settings or the general settings. Once you get to general settings, you'll notice there is a section for recording. When you click on recording, you'll have some additional options as to how this might work. So you can choose the location of recorded files when the meeting ends. That's helpful if you want to figure out, hey, I'm saving locally, meaning to your machine that you have in your office or at your house, and you want to point it to a specific folder to save it to. You can record a separate audio file for each participant who speaks, which could just be a very specific kind of audio breakdown. I typically do not do that. Because it gets arduous to be able to track and utilize that. Additionally, you can have some timestamps in the recording and then record during the screen sharing. So if you want that to record anything that you're screen sharing, I think you would want to keep that on. So you can place the video next to the screen share during the recording, meaning that you actually have your video in there while the recording is happening. So you might consider doing that on certain scenarios. Now, one thing to note on this one that I did with place video next to the shared screen, sometimes that just minimizes the shared screen. So if you have very finite details that you're trying to show off, and sometimes you do not want to have that selected. But here's the big reason I'm showing you this recording panel, is if you're going to record locally, you will want to change your location. This is especially important if you're going to be recording on campus, because most campus computers will not have the storage capacity to hold multiple recordings. We're saying that your jump drive should have at least 32 gigabytes of space, if not more, if you're going to be saving locally. So in this particular instance, I've already have it set up where I would want it to, so I don't need to change it. But if you wanted to, you click change, find that location, find it, hit OK, and now it's going to be pointing to that recording location. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the bulk of recording. So recording, when you click the button, as long as it's been enabled, you should see record to this computer or record to the cloud. So let's just do a quick record to this computer and see what the experience is like. So if I hit record,
meeting is being recorded.
So it does let you know that this is going to be recorded. It's a verbal message that everyone can hear at that point. I suggest to the students that may not want to have their video baked in to not turn on their video. But now as it records, it's recording locally. So everything I say is being captured. If I were to go into a screen share and share one of my screens, it would record that as well. So screen is being shared, recorded. I'd stop the share. That's done. Everything that I just did was recorded into the session. Now it's still recording, and you can see this down here, and unfortunately on my screen size, the positioning of the buttons is off. This little pause button should actually be over to the right hand side here, but just imagine those two are together. You can pause the recording midstream and then restart it as you go. I typically record the whole thing and then I stop when I'm done. So once you stop,
the recording has stopped.
It tells you that it's been stopped, and then you can end the session. And let's watch what happens when we end the meeting. So first off, it's going to tell you that it's converting that meeting and it's recording it. So it's putting that meeting recording. An hour's recording could take up to 15 minutes on that screen that you just saw. And then it's going to say, hey, you ready to save that recording somewhere? And then you can hit yes. So when you save a recording locally, I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. If I have a folder that it saves to for Zoom, and it has all my recordings. And then you can navigate to that last recording. There it is. And inside there, you're going to have a Zoom file that you can open up, down. And so there's your recording. It's just a local file that we had, and it recorded everything that was in that Zoom session. And so even in that middle point, that's where I shared my screen. You were able to see that screen share and had all that entire experience. So that is the basics of doing a local recording. And the benefit to this is now that you have a file that you can save, you can take into an editor, you can do whatever you like with, and it's right there locally on your machine. So let's jump in and see what cloud recording might look like. So, and sure enough, there's all my meetings for this particular course. I'll start the meeting, wait for things to kind of get set up, and we're going to jump into record mode. So this would be typically the first thing that you do is you join the meeting, get everything kind of staged up, and then once all the participants get in, you know what, I'm going to add a participant to this course just so we can get that experience. Okay, so we're going to let our participants into the course. Once you've established everyone's in the course, that's when you start. When you start the course is when you would want to start the recording. So what you would do is you would go to your record button. You notice if I go to participants panel, that record button seems to disappear. It really doesn't. It just goes into this more panel, and you'll notice that there's the ability to do recording and things there. So really dependent on how your screen is set up is where this record button will be, but it should always be in this navigation panel. So we've already done the local recording. Let's try what happens when we record to the cloud.
This meeting is being recorded.
The message plays that you're recording to the cloud, and you're in a full record mode at this point. There's not much else you need to do other than have your session. It will record all the different elements, and you don't even have to hit stop when it's done. You're done with the session. You just bail by hitting end. If you do hit stop recording, it will end. Let's say you get to the end of the course and like, that is the end of the course, and then you hit stop. It'll say, do you want to stop the cloud recording? We'll hit yes.
The recording has stopped.
Now that's been sent to the cloud. You can continue the kind of last Q&A. There might be some just, really informal conversation after the meeting that doesn't get recorded. But once you end the meeting for everyone, it's done. You don't need to do anything. The meeting is going to be recorded. Now, if I go to these cloud recordings right here, there was one at 10:40 that I had recorded this morning just to do some additional details on this. What's happening behind the scenes, it needs to process. It needs to do some analysis of what I said in that meeting so it can do some transcription. And so you do have to wait a certain number of times. So if this is like an hour recording, think about this taking quite a bit of time before this recording is going to be available. Now, while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to go into my meetings. So here I am in my account at zoom.us. I'm not in the one for Blackboard. I can go to all of my recordings and find all my recordings that I have, and I can look at them here. I could share them if I wanted to click a share button and put expiry dates and put different things in there to share them. You can allow that to happen. So there's a lot of tools at just sharing your videos generically here. This one isn't dynamically linked in Blackboard when you're in this mode. So you really are going to want to be in Blackboard in a second when you do this, and you'll see in just a second. So as I click through these courses, I look what I've done. Here is the recording that we had just completed to the cloud. You can see it's right here in Blackboard, but it's amongst all my other recordings. This is how you manage your recordings. This is recording management for you. You're able to do things. You can go ahead and delete the recording. You can download your files. Maybe you recorded something to the cloud, you liked it, but you know what? Why do I want to keep it out in the cloud? I just want a version of it. So you go here, you go to more, you go to your download, and then it's going to give you the ability to download multiple files. It gave me a couple things. Number one, it's going to allow me to download the video file, so I could hit OK, download that. Number two, it's going to allow you to download the transcript. That is your chat. That is the information that's been happening during that session. And then finally, it's also doing a file for your audio that you can download. So you can download all those files if you click download. So that's why it gives you 3 dialogues in that instance. Now, it's a little bit easier for your students to be able to manage this. So let's go over, first of all, what it would look like for you as an instructor, and then we can look at what it might look like for our students. So here I am in the view of an instructor. If I was just in the course, how I got there is I would click that Zoom Classroom. It would bring up all the meetings that I could typically join, or I can go over to my cloud recordings. Now notice, here is the cloud recording that we just created. So it's 1350, 150 where I'm recording this, and you'd have the ability to publish that recording. By clicking publish, that makes it available for your students. So if you need a full demo of what this looks like, I'm gonna have to jump in as a student account. So from the student perspective, what do they see in terms of the recordings? So you recorded the session, you go to your Zoom classroom as a student. This is a student again. This is where they can join all their sessions, but then they go to cloud recordings and they will only see the cloud recordings that you have permitted them to see. So they're not seeing that new recording you did. And depending on the processing time, you're going to have to know to revisit your course and turn on that publish button a little bit later in the day. So if I go down and now I'm in my instructor view, notice that that publish button is not turned on. If I were to turn it on, and then as the student, I were to go into your course, you're going to probably want to go back, back into that recordings area and look at cloud recordings. Now it's available for you as a student. As a student, if you click on that recording, it's going to go to this window and it's going to show two things you can do: your audio of the session or the recording. Now, right the second you click on this recording to try to play it, a couple things are going to happen. Number one, it's going to block a pop-up if you have pop-up blockers on. Otherwise, a pop-up will happen and you'll be able to see the video instantly. And also below, it's going to set up a password and an ability for you to copy that password if you'd like. So I'm going to just click that button. It copies into your default there and into your tray. You can also hit this eyeball to see what that password is. Otherwise, in my particular case, I could go to this options and I'm going to just say, hey, show me this video. And it's asking for that password that I had just copied. So I can just go here and I can paste it and I'm going to access that recording. And now I have full access to that recording as the student. What's really handy is it's taken a transcription of what you said, so you can scroll through the video by reading it as best they can, as long as it's been, really careful at kind of finding things. You as the instructor, if you're logged in and you go to the recording, you can actually edit your transcript. You can edit it so it is fixed if things don't work out quite right. But from a student perspective, they can change the speed of the video, they can toggle the closed captioning that is pulling from the transcript, and at this point they do have the ability to download that video. So we are going to look into if there is ability to toggle that on or off, but at this point they would be able to download that video. So that is the experience from a student perspective as to what they would get when you have a recording that's available in there. A lot of that is all hands off. You've just recorded the video and it's just going to pop up in your recordings. The only thing that you're going to have to do as the instructor is manage the ability of that recording to be seen. So you're looking at me creating things in a particular course. So this course information, this recording is only visible to me here. Now, let's say, you're already logged into Blackboard. You didn't want to spend the extra couple minutes to go log into Zoom through the traditional method by going to zoom.us. So what you can do is there's this button for all my Zoom meetings and recordings. You click on that and you're going to have access to all your recordings that you have and all your meetings that you have in your session. Now, you can't typically just take these meetings and show it to this class, but it's a quick way for you to get in there and be able to take a look at what other recordings you are without having to go to another system. So in the end, recording management is going to become a thing, because as you have a certain number of recordings, some of them will drop off after a certain time frame. Right now, starting out, we were thinking they would be only available for 15 days. So that's 2 weeks from the time the recording was created. We are looking at opportunities to expand that ability to hold recordings. And so that time might increase depending on how much space we have. Typically, each account by default only has half a gig of space, which is not that much to hold a recording, but we're looking to increase that size as we go along. A typical hour recording would pretty much eat up that space. If not 2 hours of recording would eat it up completely, as you would see. So thank you.